opportunity to speak. Um, uh, First of all, I will say that we are not children. So telling folks that have endured something that you have never endured to stop anything is absolutely uncalled for. The systems of trauma caused by the enslavement of Black people in this country, it's not history. Those systems are ongoing and they are vicious. That trauma, science tells us, and we're talking about science, is intergenerational. The pain endured by our ancestors lives in our DNA. Look it up. In the stories we know about the horrors faced by enslaved Black people of African descent and their families. In the material world we live in, where descendants of people who were enslaved endure historic levels of inequity. The painful reality is slavery isn't just a Southern problem, it's an American problem. I'm not from the South. I'm from Missouri, a former Midwestern slave state. St. Louis, my district, was the very place where Dred Scott, a free man, was denied the fullness of his humanity because he was Black. St. Louis has been the site of auction blocks and slave patrols, broken people, broken families, broken communities, and to this day, we continue to suffer in slavery by another name. We are over criminalized still, over policed still. We are under resourced. Some want us to believe that slavery is a long past history, but its vestiges are alive today, generation after generation, in Black communities all across this country. If we removed the impact of every single dollar garnered from slavery, every bale of cotton, every pound of tobacco they harvested that you actually benefit from, where would this country be? Who would have these buildings we can now sit in so comfortably in a building that some of you are seated in right now? And to the Republicans who are against this legislation, how dare you? How dare your nearly all white panel spend so much energy and abuse your power to deny justice for the descendants of one of the most egregious atrocities in the history of the world? You will not deny our families stories of being separated, sold, because I got that story, sold, I got that story, raped, I got that story, lynched, I got that story in my family, and beaten into submission, I got that story in my family. And not just me, so many other Black Americans. So how dare you? Some of my colleagues are trying to argue that the South is economically impoverished and therefore could not have benefited from slavery. But that is not only disingenuous, it is outright wrong. The entire country benefited from slavery. The North took the rich harvest from the South and made thread that was then exported across the world. The South harvested cotton that made the United States one of the most prolific exporters of cotton. Come on now, talk about the history. Us as lawmakers working in this chamber are benefiting from the free labor, that free labor that built this very capital. And so I'm going to ask you, unless you can come with those stories about what happened, the lynchings and all that your family members went through, unless you can talk about those stories of rape, unless you can talk about those stories of how your folks worked and did not receive the wage, your folks, because let me say this, we're not talking about folks that lived around the corner. We're talking about folks that were stolen from their actual land, lost their culture, lost their languages, lost their stories, were separated from their families, all to work for ancestors of folks that look like some of these folks today that are on this call that are opposing this. So let me remind you, you have no idea what that is like. You don't know what that's like, but the least that you can do is support research. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back.